Hey friends and book lovers, welcome. Today we're doing another weekly updates for my reads this week, and we are still doing the Olympics readathon, and I am still trying to read a million books this month. I think my ultimate goal is to read 10 books this month, but I did put myself in the rank of like someone who reads 5 to 10 books a month, which is usually pretty accurate. I think the least amount of books that I read this year was 4 when I was having a really tough month, and the most was 11 when I was doing a bunch of rereads for books that I knew were going to totally get me addicted. And so since we're doing a competitive readathon, I figured 10 is probably good to push me. So I think I've read at least 7 by now, and I think I could do at least another 3 before the month wraps up. I might have even read more than 7 by the time this video goes live in a couple days, but let's see. So I'm gonna start with the books that I just recently finished for sure, and that is the first one, at least, is Amarya and the Night Brothers by Baby Alston. I read part of this on audiobook. I had borrowed the audiobook from my library just because I wanted something to have on audio while I do unpacking and house chores, because we did move a couple weeks ago and I had to finish it off via physical copy because my audiobook somehow got lost and got returned to the library earlier. I don't know, but the Libby app glitched on me, which was really sad. But I did finish this the other day, and I have it for the Artemis prompt because it has the word night in the title, and I've heard so much about it, so I figured I would be reading it for that prompt and seeing what all the fuss was about. And let me tell you, it's better than I expected for a middle grade book, and I don't usually love middle grade as much as I loved this. It is so good and it's so interesting, and I'm definitely going to be picking up the next books because I think this is going to be a series of books, and I think it's going to be a really good series in general. This is also the author's debut, and I have to say, for a debut novel, it's really good. It's really evenly paced, it's really well done, it's action-packed, but also there is nothing left unexplained, which I think is pretty customary for a middle grade novel because you don't want too many mysteries out there. And we have the plot that's really action-packed, like I mentioned before, and then also the characters are really raw and just out there, and it's just really refreshing to see kind of these really honest characters somehow in middle grade. There's also some talk of societal issues, which I think is really important that fantasy novels, especially fantasy novels that are middle grade, do touch upon that. And I think that the young heroine is definitely gonna be really relatable to a lot of different people, but also even adult readers could really get a lot out of reading this. So if you have kids and you want something to read with your kids and they are middle grade level, I would really recommend this one because it's really good. Definitely one that I would recommend if you have children that are of this reading age. So loved it. This was definitely a success, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished a few days back was the final book in the Daevabad trilogy, and that is The Empire of Gold. Ooh, it's really shiny. I had slated this for July, but since I was put on the Nyx team, our prompt is to read the last in a series or duology, and I just figured I would use Empire of Gold because it is a large book, lots of pages, and it definitely got us a lot of points when I read it. This is, like I said, the finale for the Daevabad trilogy. It's so good. I think out of the 3 books, this is by far my favorite. I feel like the characters were starting to really see some of their arcs. I feel like you got a lot more of the world. There were other things that came to light that you only kind of heard about in previous books, but really were explored in this book. The ending was really good. I felt like I could understand how some people were disappointed by the ending, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I kind of think that, you know, this gives the author leeway to do another series in this world, which I would completely read because I think that there's so much more left to explore. Not that things were unanswered or unexplored, but I just think the world is so rich and lush that you could definitely do more books, another trilogy or another series in this world, and I would be all over it. I know that she's only written these 3 books, so I don't know if I would call S.A. Chakraborty an auto-author yet, but I will definitely be buying the next book she releases because I think it'll be really good, depending of course on the premise. But so far so good. I really love this series, and hopefully you guys can have the chance to pick it up because it's really good. And if you've read either of these novels, please let me know because I would love to hear it. In terms of what I'm currently reading, I am currently reading With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I'm actually listening to this on audiobook because I find that her narration, the author's narration, is really powerful, really impactful, and it just does something to me. So in terms of books, I love Elizabeth Acevedo, but in terms of audiobooks, she's like superior. And I'm not an audiobook person, so this is definitely an author that I will probably auto buy from now on, just on audiobook, because it's just so good. This is a contemporary novel that I'm using for Demeter since there's food on the cover. And it's about this young girl who is in high school, has a child, has kind of a harder life, and is also really interested in cooking and culinary skills. And you hear about her life and her journey through learning more about cooking and her own culinary skill set and like magic behind that. So it's definitely not a fantasy novel, but there is a little bit of like magical realism at certain parts of it, which I thought was really cute and enjoyed. But it's very, very, very slight, and we only just got to it at like 75% of the book. So this one I'm definitely going to be finishing today, so I'm very excited for that. The other book I'm currently reading is Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. I've only read the first page so far, and the opening line is really intense. I read the opening line and I was like, dang, okay, way to pull us in, Elise Kova. And I'm intrigued by it. I don't have super high hopes because I have read one book from her and it was very tropey, and I've heard that she really likes her tropes, so her books can feel very tropey, which I enjoy, but not to that extreme. So I'm thinking it'll be a really enjoyable read, probably like 3.5 stars, but we'll see. But that one is the pick for the Atlantis Discord, which I run with my friend Kristen. So we have been picking a lot of fantasy romance, and this is just a fantasy romance novel that we picked for the month of June. I think we just posted the July poll for the July pick, so if you guys are interested in fantasy romance reads, you can head on over to the Atlantis Discord. I will link that down below, and help us pick out a book by Sunday for the month of July. On to the next books that I'm going to be starting very soon. And this one I'm going to be starting tonight if all goes to plan, and that is The Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I read Six of Crows a couple months back. It's been a long time now, and I've been meeting every single month to read this book. I think I am going to put this for Found Family maybe, and we'll see how it goes. I have heard really good things about Crooked Kingdom. I've heard that it's very emotional, there are tears, it's very just impactful, so I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also not looking forward to like tears. Although I have realized that whenever I'm expecting to cry in a book, I usually don't, because I've already braced myself for it. So we'll see about this one. I am very hopeful to get this done before the month of June, because I think that this is gonna be a fast read. I feel like Leigh Bardugo's writing is very easy, very accessible, and the stories are really interesting that I just kind of fly through them. So I'm excited to finally finish this duology and get to King of Scars, which is one that I'm really looking forward to. And then the last book that I'll be trying to dig into this week, and of course, plans can always change. I could always breeze through these books and add a couple more things, but y'all will see that in the next video. But for this video, the last book that I will be reading is called A Shadow in Summer by Daniel Abraham, and there is a buddy read, an unofficial buddy read going on for this in the Shelf Space Discord, and it's also gonna have a live show this Sunday, I think, which is very exciting. I'm hoping to finish this book before the live show so that I can watch the whole thing, but we'll see. This isn't a very long book. I think it's like 300 pages for the first one. This is the bind up, which is why it looks so thick, of all 4 books in the quartet. But the first one is only like 300 pages, so I'm really hoping that I will be able to finish that in a few days' time. And I don't know much about this series, but I do know that it follows all of the characters over the course of 60 years, and it's fantasy, and I think there's also like a military aspects to it, which is really enough for me to dive into it. I haven't read a series where the characters are followed for more than like a decade, so seeing characters being followed throughout their life in a fantasy fiction story like this one is really interesting to me, which is what kind of hooked me. That was like the thing that I was like, I want to see how the author does that and how it's played out. So I'm reading the first one, The Shadow in Summer, and I'm hoping to get that done for June as well, which will hopefully put me at 10 books for the month, which is really my goal and something that I am going to be so proud if I accomplish that. But even if I don't, reading 7 or 8 books in 1 month is still really great, especially seeing as how busy the month has been. But stay tuned for June wrap up, because that's where I'm really going to show and talk about every single thing I've read and what was included in that as well. If you're reading any of the books that I mentioned today, or if you plan on reading them, please leave that in the comments down below. I definitely want to hear your thoughts and want to hear what you've been thinking about them as you've been reading them. And if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, because that does help support my channel. And if you like this and you want to see more content from me, please do not hesitate to subscribe.